My name is Beatrice Clarice Jones Dupree. And today, September 5th, 2017, is part of our 150th year celebration of Shiloh Baptist Church. I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Harry Starks Wright, one of the longest living members of this church, Shiloh Baptist Church, and one of the most prestigious members of Shiloh Baptist Church. Anytime someone comes to Shiloh Baptist Church, especially a minister, if they look in the audience and see Dr. Wright, they recognize him immediately. Dr. Wright, again, I was very surprised when someone called me and asked me if I would interview you, and very pleased that they did, because we go way back a long time, long time. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you can take as long as you want to answer them, because I know that you have the answer behind most of these questions. The first thing I want to ask you is, where were you born? I don't know the answer to that one. And how long have you been a member of Shiloh Baptist Church?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dupree, and I'm delighted to be a part of the celebration at Shiloh as you get ready to look back on 150 years. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 1867, this church was founded, and so now it's very appropriate that you pause to celebrate 150 years. And I can't believe what my ears heard when you said that I am one of the oldest living members of Shiloh Baptist Church. I can't believe that, but I guess I am. Sometimes I look around in Shiloh on Sunday mornings and try to see if there are people out there who are older than me, and I can pick out a few. Mm-hmm. But I'm in that number, and I'm blessed that the Lord has spared my life. And I was born in Bennettsville. I was born on what we used to call the Baptist Hill, and I was born in the old parsonage, the white frame building that's now used by the Children's Defense Fund. My daughter gave birth to the Children's Defense Fund. Mama told me I was born in that house, and not in the hospital, but in that house. Miss Cassie Grace was her attendant. Dr. Hannah was her doctor, and I was born in that house. Olive and Junior were born in New York and Philadelphia, and Junior was born in Columbia. Marion and I were born in Bennettsville. So to answer that question, I was born on Baptist Hill, right here in Bennettsville, and I have been a member of Shiloh all of my life. I moved around Texas and New York and so forth, but I never moved my membership. So I was baptized when I was 12, which means that I've been a member for 74 years. And my dad was a pastor, and Dad baptized me. And so all of my spiritual life, my roots are in the Shiloh Baptist Church right here in Bennettsville.
Thank you very much. Who were your parents?
Well, I call them Mom and Daddy, and I wanted us to do this oral history in this room because there's a picture of Mom and Daddy up on this wall, and this is what I call my memory room. And Mom and Daddy came to Bennettsville in 1929, and I'm sitting next to Dr. and Mrs. J.J. Starks. This is Mrs. Julia Ann Starks. She's a graduate of Clark College and Atlanta University. Dr. Starks came out of Morehouse, the second class of young men that graduated from Morehouse College. Dr. John Jacob Starks was in that class. He was the second president of Morris College. Morris College was founded in 1908. Dr. Brawley was the first president. Dr. Starks was the second president of Morris College. He became president in 1912. and served as president from 1912 until 1930. Now, I say all that to say this, that my middle name is Starks, and my father was the pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church when I was baptized, got religion, and Daddy baptized me, and Mama, of course, was his helpmeet. And it was through Dr. Starks and his recommendation to Shiloh that Daddy and Mama came to Bennettsville in 1929. And this was Daddy's only church, Shiloh Baptist Church, from 1929 until he died in 1954. So my middle name is taken after a great man, Dr. John Jacob Starks. And when I came along in 1931, it was hard times. And we were in the midst of the Great Depression, as you know, and Daddy oftentimes referred to me as, quote, hard times in 1931. But they were a great admirer of Dr. Starks, and it was through his recommendation that Daddy came to Shiloh. And somewhere in the history of Shiloh Baptist Church, it says that when Daddy and Mama came to Shiloh in 1929, it was a good fix. It was a good fix. So Daddy was recommended by Dr. Starks in 1929, and on his recommendation, Daddy came, and Shiloh was his only church. So Daddy baptized me, and I became a member of Shiloh under my father's leadership here.
Thank you very much. I can remember being at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina, I think, when your father died. But when I came, your mother was still living. And I often talk about how she played that organ up there, and I just loved hearing her play the organ. I think I saw a picture somewhere there with her.
Yeah, that's Mama and
The
Dad.
first time I looked at those pictures,
Right
yeah,
there,
this
yeah.
ma'am, and that's your mother.
Yeah, Mama's up there.
Yes.
Well, she was Daddy's helpmate and a strong companion. Mama was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Daddy was born in Gaffney, South Carolina. And Mama oftentimes said when we were kids that she did not want to come to Bennettsville, this little town. But she married Daddy, and they dropped anchor here in 1929 and gave their lives together here at Shiloh Baptist Church and in Marlborough County.
I didn't want to come to Bennettsville either. I mean, I was in college, and he was from Bennettsville. And of course, we ended up in Bennettsville, as you know.
You mentioned Benedict, if I could just cut you off.
Yeah.
Dr. Starks left Morris College in 1930 and came to Benedict College, and he was the first black president of Benedict College. This is a picture of Ann Tisdale Chapel.
That's right.
And of course, he followed Dr. Ann Tisdale, who was white. He was the first black president of Benedict College. And he was the president there from 1930 until 1944 and did a tremendous job, Dr. J.J. Starks. And of course, my father built on the labors that Dr. Starks did at Shiloh. He was a great leader at Shiloh and began the building of the new Shiloh Baptist Church. And by the way, Dr. H.H. Harrell, Mr. H.H. Harrell, who was the architect of Ann Tisdale Chapel. And you can tell this looks very much like Shiloh because Dr. Harrell, who lived 2 doors down from where we are now, next door was Mr. Harrell, who was a florist, and the next house was Mr. Harrell, who was the architect. And he was the architect who drew the plans for Ann Tisdale Chapel at Benedict, and also the architect for Shiloh Baptist Church here in Bennettsville. And Dr. Starks was a genius who brought Mr. Harrell not only to build Ann Tisdale Chapel, but also Shiloh Baptist Church. I attended Benedict College. You'll ask me about that a little bit later, but I just have to mention the fact that my freshman year, I was so privileged when we would have chapel in Ann Tisdale Chapel. I spent my freshman year at Benedict College before I came down to Morehouse. And I was there because my sister Olive was teaching French I wanted to go to Morehouse, but Olive said, come on down to Benedict and I'll take care of you and put some money in your pocket and we'll be together at Benedict. And so I have no regrets having gone to Benedict. My freshman year did well. Morehouse accepted all of my credits and went on down to Morehouse for my sophomore year.
Is that where you met Bates?
Yes, that's where I met Eddie Bates. He and I became the best of friends.
Because he was in the school of theology when I was there.
That's right, Eddie Bates.
Yes.
He was a wonderful young man and a great preacher too.
He was. And his wife,
Alice,
that he married, was a sorority sister of mine. And I always thought you and Bates looked somewhat alike.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, we spent a lot of time together.
Yes. Okay. What contribution do you think, and many people that knew them think even today, that your parents made to Shiloh Baptist Church? You got to be a little right now. You know, I want you to be.
Well, that's a good question. I think it's very appropriate as we pause to celebrate our 150th anniversary. We're looking back on not just our leadership, but also our fellowship, and the 25 years that Mom and Dad were here. And I thought about this question, Mrs. Dupree and Ms. Dudley, and I would think that the tremendous contribution that Daddy made during his tenure were at least threefold. Number one, the tremendous investment in young people. Dad and Mama made a tremendous investment in our scouting programs, in our youth fellowship, our playground, with our Boy Scouts, with our Girl Scouts, with our Brownies, and then secondly, with our senior citizens. Dad had a very tender place in his heart for the elderly. And long before there was any thought of a done deal, there was a home for the aged here in Bennettsville founded by Mom and Dad. They rented 2 houses on Chilroy Street. The first resident in that old folks home where Dr. McCollum's old office is now, there were 2 wooden shotgun houses, and Daddy rented those 2 houses and put some of the old people who had no place to go in those 2 houses. Reverend Riddick was the man in the house to the left, and Miss Mary Floyd was the first woman in the house to the right. So they gave a tremendous contribution, Ms. Dudley and Ms. Dupree, to the youth of our community. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Brownies, and you and I both remember the playground on Friday nights and Saturdays in the back there. We had a skating rink back there, a canteen back there, where the kids would come, and a strong scouting program. So I would say the young people and the elderly would be the tremendous contribution of Mom and Dad. And then thirdly, my father was a great disciple of the teachings of Booker T. Washington, who was a great exponent of what he called self-help. Booker T. Washington, put your buckets down where you are. And Daddy came to Bennettsville with that tremendous commitment to self-help and education. Plant a garden, invest in education, send your children to school. That was his tremendous influence in this community. And for a small community, it is really a Cinderella story, the number of young people that families with little money but with great vision sent their children on to schools of higher education. So young people, the elderly, and education, politics, self-help.
Thank you very much for that. I could have answered many of those questions because when I married and came to Bennettsville, all of those things were very, very active around this church. Very much so. And the next thing that I want to ask you is how many siblings do you have? Their names. You want me to name them for you?
Would you name them for me?
Yes, I would. Of course I would. You do that.
Yeah, there are 5 of us. There are 5 of us. That's Olive. Olive never likes me to call her the oldest, so she's the firstborn. Olive, then there's Junior, then there's me. I'm the middle child. I'm sandwiched in between 2 younger and 2 older. And there's Julian B., who passed away in 1997. And then, of course, the youngest is Marion. So there are 5 of us. And I'm the middle child, sandwiched in between 2 younger and 2 older.
What are some memories that you had at Shiloh growing up with your siblings, memories that you think caused you to be the great person that you are today?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Some of my memories, I could go on and on, but let me just summarize it by saying that I had a very happy childhood. Mm-hmm. I had a wholesome childhood, had a happy childhood. We didn't have a lot of money. It was hard times when I came along, and money was tight, but we had a lot of love in our family. We never went hungry. I can't remember a time, Mrs. Dudley Dupree, that I ever had a hot lunch in school. We didn't have hot lunches when we were coming up, and I never rode a school bus to school a day in my life. We walked to school. And I never remember looking back, leaving home, going to school with a candy bar in my hand. Mama always sent us to school with a breakfast. And we had no money, and you ran home from school out of sheer hunger. So you went to school in the morning with a good breakfast, and you came back knowing that Mama would have something on the table when you came back. So my memory growing up as a child on the Baptist Hill is we had a strong, wholesome, God-fearing family, and we were a happy family, and always with chores around the house to do to keep us out of trouble. If there ever was a man who was a genius in inventing something to keep you busy, Daddy was a genius. He always had something for you to do when you came home from school. Because when you came home from school, the first thing you did, take off your school clothes and put on your work clothes or play clothes, because Daddy had something for you to do. So my memories, growing up with my siblings, we were happy. We were taught to respect each other. We worked together as members of our family, and we grew up strong and wholesome with faith, always eating our Sunday meal together. Sunday was always special. And of course, you went to church on Sundays. You always had Baptist Training Union on Sunday afternoon, BTU. Even now, sometimes I find myself humming our BTU theme song, Give of Your Best to the Master. Miss Prudence McCollum, her picture's up there, Miss Rose McCollum. These were pillars in our church who led us in our Sunday afternoon Baptist Training Union. Yes. And on Sundays, Ms. Dupree, we had to keep on our Sunday clothes all day. Now during the week, of course, you took off your school clothes, but on Sunday, we had to keep on our Sunday clothes all day. That was terrible, because you couldn't shoot marbles, you couldn't go down to the creek, you couldn't hunt bullfrogs. You had to keep on your Sunday clothes all day, because you had to go to BTU at 5 o'clock. And even now, I remember our theme song, Give of Your Best to the Master. Miss Prudence McCollum, Miss Rosa, those were matriarchs in our church who kept their hands on us as young people. I had a happy childhood.
Your childhood was similar to that at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Greenwood. We always had BTU on Sunday afternoon. Yeah. But we could change our clothes, and we just couldn't put on anything, and go to BTU. And I remember the minister, Dr. King, at my church. He would always be there with us when we had BTU. So that's similar. The next person I want to ask is, as a young boy, growing up in Shiloh Baptist Church, what adults, and you somewhat got on that's why I'm not talking much about things that I know about Shiloh, because I've been here over 50 years, because I came when I married Ralph after we graduated community college, and we came here. A lot of these things were in place at that particular time, And I just thought Shiloh was the greatest church that I had ever seen, with all of these things, you know, like the nursing home, which took in Mrs. Lassane, a lady that I cared a lot about. Julian B. was the one that encouraged me to do that, to bring her, you know, to the nursing home back there. And also, your mother had these girls that she took in.
That's right.
And everything. And they became babysitters for my children when they were little. When Rap and I wanted to go someplace, we would pick them up. We would call Mrs. Wright and ask her if they could come. And we would pick them up and they would come to the house and babysit. Oh, just such good memories from those early years. The next person that I want to ask you, and I've often heard you preach about these particular people in your sermon after I came here. What adults, and you mentioned, you know, one or two of them just now, what adults influenced you when you were growing up in Shiloh Baptist Church? And I remember you talking about when you were in college, they used to send you food sometime, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a good question. And
excuse me 1 minute, Miss Cassie. I do remember that name well. Somebody named Miss Cassie, I believe.
Yeah.
You preached about too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful, and that's what anniversaries are for. To pause and look back, not to go back, but it's so appropriate to pull in and pause and think about where the church has come from. 150 years is a long time, and Shiloh to have been organized 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 1865, and such a beautiful church building. What a wonderful vision our forebears had, and what a wonderful architect Mr. Harold was to design a church for black people back in those days. And that church was completed, that building was completed in 1932. And the members went into that new building on Easter Sunday morning, 1932. I imagine a building like that on Chirrell Street now, a wonderful facility that black people had. And by the way, the artisans who built that church were black. The brick masons and carpenters and so on, Mr. Morris, for example, Mr. Charlie Reese, Pierce Reese, and those men, these were black artisans who built that church. And so we have a tremendous legacy. And so as I think now in terms of my childhood, Mr. Dupree, I'm in such debt to the members of that church who encouraged me and others to make something out of our lives. Someone has rightfully said, and we've heard it over and over again, it takes a village to raise a child. And if that's true, and it is, that it takes a whole village to raise a child, then the Baptist Hill and Shiloh Baptist Church, I'm in debt to that village. Not only mom and dad, but people all around on the Baptist Hill and beyond who helped mom and dad to raise us. And I could just call names right now, not only people on this wall, but you mentioned Miss Teresa Kelly, who was a tremendous cook. If there ever was a woman who could work magic with a chicken, Mrs. Teresa Kelly, she could do something with a chicken. And gravy, oh God. Miss Teresa Kelly, she was a master cook, I'm telling you. But anyway, all during my college years at Morehouse, Ms. Dupree, Miss Teresa Kelly would send me a shoebox, a regular shoebox, wrapped up, and she'd have in there some pound cake and some biscuits, some chicken, and a $5 bill. At least once a semester, Miss Teresa Kelly would send me a shoebox with food and a $5 bill. Here was a woman who took in white folks' clothes. She took in washing. And you know, there wasn't much money in that back in those days. But she invested in me, Miss Teresa Kelly. And I could call a roll of others who touched me. Miss Laura Miles, for example, always sat on the second pew there. She was a tremendous influence on all of the young people in Shiloh. Miss Rebecca Covington. Mr. Charlie Green was a member of Hopewell but he was our Boy Scout master. And Mr. Joe Morris, whenever Dad was going out of town, he'd always tell Mr. Morris, keep his eyes on the boys. And he would correct us as quick as Daddy. Whatever he needed to do to take care of us while Daddy was out of town, Mr. Morris would do it. And all he had to do was, if we stepped out of line, Mr. Morris, I'll tell you what now, I'm going to take you back in the embalming room while I'm embalming. And make you sit in there while I work. Now, buddy, now that would make us straighten up and fly right, to go back in that embalming room. We never did it. We never did it. But Miss Annie Dawkins, who lived right next at Greenhouse, she was a mother in the community. So it was a village around in the Baptist Hill and in Shiloh, people who put their hands on my head and encouraged me to stay in school, stay out of trouble, stay in church, be a good boy. I'm in debt to this whole village for who I am today.
And that's wonderful, because today things have changed.
Yeah, so much.
You know, sometimes you cannot speak to somebody's children, tell them what to do if the parents aren't around or something
That's true.
like that. It's entirely different.
That's true.
Entirely different. Okay. You know what? You have talked about these activities and programs that have stood out in your memories through the years and all. So that was a question here. I said, Dr. Wright, while growing up as a young boy and as ministering here at Shiloh Baptist Church, what activities and programs stood out as most memorable to you?
Yeah, let me add another footnote to that.
Because didn't you have the Scouts, I think?
When I became pastor in 1954, Mr. Charlie Green passed away, and I became Scoutmaster, Troop 129. And we had a tremendous, I picked up where Mr. Green left off, and we had a tremendous scouting program. And Ms. Dudley may not know it, but the A.J. Wright Memorial Building now was originally built as a hut for the scouting program. It was called the hut. The A.J. Wright Memorial Building now where we meet now, Mother's Club and Missionaries. That was originally designed, that open space, for our Boy Scouts to meet, and it was called the hut. And I can remember many Monday nights, that's when our Boy Scouts would meet. I can remember many Monday night, because I always took the role of the Scouts. I can remember many a Monday night when we had 100 boys, 100 boys in Scout meeting. From everywhere, from churches everywhere. And even now, it's so rewarding in my retirement. Many men walk up to me at different churches and so forth, and mention to me that I was one of your Boy Scouts. And that's very rewarding. Now, someone has rightfully said that the only thing you're really saved in this life is what you give away. Right. And that scouting program was a highlight of my work during my time as minister here at Shiloh. The young people, youth fellowship, the playground, our Boy Scouts, and then of course I came here in 1954 when the Civil Rights Movement was breaking across the South. And we know how tense things were in these little towns and throughout the South. But there were a number of steady heads in Marlborough County, and as we look back, we were able to make tremendous progress for a number of reasons. And we had steady heads, we had a commitment to registration as soon as we could, to register and vote, and to steadily push. I think about the time that I took my 4 little children by the hand and tried to go up to the library to go in there to read, to the old library. But we were turned around. But we didn't sit in, we didn't raise a lot of sand, but we kept quietly knocking on the door. And now, here we are with a brand new state-of-the-art library named after a young black girl who was born in Venice,ville, who couldn't go to the library when she was a kid. And now you got a library named after her. That's what I call progress. And the picture of Mom and Daddy are in that library. Right? Now, if you don't call that progress, I don't know what it is. That's quiet progress that's due to vision and commitment and strength and voting and prayer. Without a vision, people perish. And Shiloh has always been in the vanguard of leadership in this community.
That's right. Always.
I could mention Reverend Ware down in St. Paul. He and my dad were the best of friends. And at a time when it was dangerous to be a member of NAACP, many young people don't know that teachers couldn't teach in South Carolina who were members of NAACP. You could not teach in South. That's why Olive and Heber Jr. had to leave home. Olive couldn't teach. You couldn't teach and be a member of NAACP.
I'm glad you brought that up because I heard that when I first moved to Venice about that.
Yeah.
I thought that was,
It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Heber Jr. kept knocking on the door. He wanted to work at the post office. Couldn't get a job at the post office, and of course teachers had to decide whether they're going to be a member of the NAACP. My position as pastor was, you don't need to get in the cage with a lion to feed him. Throw the meat through the bars. You don't have to be a member of the NAACP. Throw the meat through the bars. You don't have to be a member, but throw the meat through the bars. What the NAACP needs is money. Registration and voting. So those are tough times, but at Shiloh we had strong members, strong followership. We voted as soon as we could vote, went to the polls, and sent our children to school, and kept clear heads. And Shiloh was always in the vanguard.
That's what Wright used to say always. So that's why he was so proud of Shiloh.
Yeah, he was in that game. Wright was in that game. Mm-hmm. And when you joined, you were in that game.
Mm-hmm. There was something I wanted to ask you about scouting again. Is it true that you met someone when you did you meet Shakita during the time that you were in charge of scouting?
If I had not been a scoutmaster, I would not have met my wife. And that's a picture of me and Mr. Abraham.
She told me that.
Yeah,
I remember. It just went through my head now that she told me that. And that's how you were.
I was scoutmaster, and Mr. Abraham, I wouldn't send my boys to camp. I would take them to camp. I'd take them to camp for a week and stay with them. We stay in tents, and those were great experiences with all of the great boys were my scouts. And I load them up in the car and take them down to Camp Mill Creek, down from Sumter. Had a wonderful time, and the director of the camp, the professional scout, was Mr. Bear, Mr. Fred Bear, and he had a pretty daughter, he had a teenage daughter by the name of Shakita. And I had just become pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church. I had become pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church in 1954, and I took these scouts down there to this camp and stayed with her. I met this little girl. She was just 17. And we agreed at the end of that scout week that we would stay in touch. She just finished Wilson High School in Florence. And we said she's going to go to Clark in Atlanta for Mrs. Stockman School. Mm-hmm. So she said, we said we'll write each other. Well, I didn't take it seriously because I had finished Morehouse. I finished my first year in seminary. I was pastoring a great church. I didn't have time for a little teenage girl like that. But she got under my skin. Something happened. The Lord was in the mix. The Lord was in the mix. And so we courted for 2 years, 17 and 19, and at the end of our sophomore year at Clark, Apostle Paul said it's better to marry than to burn. And so her parents and my parents...
Let's go back. What does that mean? It's better to marry than to burn.
The Apostle Paul said it's better to marry than to be aflame with passion. If you can't control yourself, get married.
Oh, listening to me. Okay.
Yeah, and so we decided we would elope. That we would elope. I had a brand new Chevrolet, that 57 Chevrolet right over there, my first brand new car. And the National Convention was meeting in Denver, Colorado. So she and I decided we were going to elope. We were crazy We were just crazy, that's all. But somehow or another they got out, and her mother got a whiff of it. I don't know how she got a whiff of it. I don't know if she was talking in her sleep or what. But her mother got a whiff of it and called my mother. And those two mothers sat us down and said, please don't do that. Let us give you a good send-off. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. And her father said, let me finish. Let us stay in school. Let me send her through college. I owe her that. Let me send her through college. We said, no, we can't wait that long. So we said, well, we agreed that we would let them give us a good send-off. So we got married on the 31st of March, 1957, at Cumberland United Methodist Church in France. Had a wonderful wedding. Junior was my best man. So to sum it all up, I married well. That's the way hindsight is 20/20. And looking back on my life, and those two pictures are over there, we got engaged over there, and we got married. And so I married well. The Lord was in the mix. And we were married for 50 years. And as you know, my wife got sick. She stayed sick for 5 years. And that's one of the reasons that I retired from Cornerstone Church. I was there for 21 years. But I wanted us to be as much strength as I could give her those last 5 years of her illness. But had I not been a Boy Scout, had I not taken my boys to camp, I would not have met her. But when you live long enough, 86 years.
I just want you to answer it, but I want you to tell it all.
Yeah.
But I remember, Shakita and I were very good friends, and we talked about things.
But it's wonderful to live long enough to be able to look back on your life and to be able to say that the Lord has ordered my steps.
Yeah.
And that's why I look on it now. These 3 chapters in my life, the Bennettsville chapter, the Texas chapter, for 13 years at Bennettsville, 15 years on a college campus, and then 21 years at a great church in New York. And the Lord has kept me on my feet. And so it's been a Cinderella story.
Yeah. She was a fine young lady.
She was that.
Very, very fine. I remember the last night you all came to the house just before, and that wasn't too long before she died. We were sitting in the sunroom talking about old times and all. Okay. The next question. When you left Bennettsville, I remember that time very well because nobody wanted you to leave Shiloh. And I had a group of ladies that cornered me one day and said, you go and talk to Harry and get him not to leave. I said, I'm not going to do that because he's young. And of course, let them, go wherever they want to go. And we went to Texas. I have a sister who lives in Texas now, but I think you did well there. And one Sunday, I happened to be visiting my sister in Texas, and we went to a church. And this young man, I just was looking at him preaching, and he was so much like you in that pulpit. So I wrote his name down, and I came back. Do you remember I brought that name to you?
Yeah, Freddie Haynes.
I can't even remember his name.
He was in Dallas.
He was in Dallas,
yeah.
And we went to this particular church. Yeah. My niece was a member of that church. And I brought the name back, and you told me that was one of your students at Bishop College.
That's right.
Very, very, very. Oh, the church was just biggest church I've ever gone to. But when you left Bennettsville that time, and at that particular time, because I wouldn't go and talk to you and Shakita, well, some of the people, they were somewhat upset because they really wanted you to stay because you had done such a great job at Shiloh. And I can remember when people would join Shiloh, you would come out that pulpit and meet them halfway down the aisle. And that was so impressive to me, You would always do that. When I joined, I was so scared I didn't know what to do because I didn't know many people in that church at that particular time. But when you left Bennettsville, just tell us a little about the direction your life took. It
was hard. I was born here, and Dad and Mom had poured their lives into Shiloh, and it was a tremendous sacrifice to build that church and the educational building and the parsonage. And I knew the sacrifice that Mom and Dad had made. It was a great work, and it was Dad's only church. And Dad was looking forward to my coming out of seminary and giving him a hand. Perhaps we could be co-pastors together or succeed him. But that didn't happen. Daddy died in 1954, my first year in seminary, and of course I dropped out of seminary to succeed Daddy, as you know. It's a sentimental story, Miss Dudley, when Daddy died very suddenly. And when we buried him up at the Ideal Cemetery, I had not taken my exams for that final semester. I just pulled up and came home for Daddy's funeral. But I had to go back after the funeral to take my final exams. And so when we committed Daddy's body up at Ideal Cemetery, the deacons at Shiloh called me to the side at the cemetery, had him cover Daddy up, and said, "Now, we want you to prayerfully consider being our next pastor." I said, "That's ridiculous." I said, "Dad would want me to stay in school, as you know. Dad put emphasis on education. He wouldn't want me to drop out of school. And I haven't finished my first year. I finished college, and I'm finishing my first year in seminary. But Dad would want me to stay in school. I'm too young. I don't know how to be a pastor. And we haven't covered Daddy up yet. I'm going back to school and finish my first year. And let's pray over it." And they said, "Well, Sunday we're not going to have service. We're not going to have a preacher. We're going to have prayer meeting Sunday." Daddy was buried on Thursday. Said, "We're going to have prayer meeting Sunday, and we're going to call you." So we're going to call you. I said, "Don't do that. If you do, I'm not coming." So anyway, I left the cemetery, my bags in the car, drove back to Rochester, New York, finished my exams, and Mama called me that Sunday night and said, "Harry, we had a prayer meeting in Chesapeake, and after the prayer meeting, had a business meeting, and they called you." I said, "Mama, they can't do that." I said, "That's illegal." I said, "They can't call. I'm not coming. I'm too young. I don't have any experience." To make a long story short, they called me. I said I wasn't going to come, but I did. I came, and I look back on it, I had no regrets. I stayed out of school for 6 years. And in that interim period while I was out of school for 6 years, I tried to get in Duke right up there in Durham, where it would be nearby and I could continue but Duke wasn't accepting black students. Couldn't get in. Because I said, well, I'm going to just wait because I really want to go back to Rochester. So I just stayed out for 6 years. And then as the Apostle Paul said, the Lord opened a wide door of opportunity for me to go back to the school where I really wanted to go back. And I sold Shiloh on giving me a leave of absence and letting me go back. I'll come back during the summers and Easter and special holidays and so forth. And I'll bring in a strong man to oversee the pulpit, Dr. O.R. Rubin, who was president of Morris College. He agreed to oversee the pulpit while I was away. Well, that made the church feel good to have the president of a college to oversee the pulpit. He would come and preach. When he couldn't come, he'd send somebody. So that made the church feel good that the president of Morris is in charge of the pulpit until our pastor gets through. Mr. Pierce Reese was my most difficult person. He was chairman of the trustee board. I had a hard time settling Pierce on the meaning of leave of absence. How can you be away on a leave and still be our pastor? So I had to really sit down on this front porch and sell him on the idea. And once I sold Pierce, he had a loud voice and a lot of influence, and he did it. So anyway, Shakita and I pulled up. Her mother, we got married during the 6 years, children came along. Her mother-in-law kept the children, and we took off back to Rochester. The Lord let me finish my last 2 years, and I did what I said I was going to do. I came back to Shiloh to pick up where I left off. And then in 1967, when this opened door to a wider ministry out in Texas called me to come out to this campus. To answer your question, what turn did my ministry take? it took an academic turn to a college campus where I would not only be a pastor, but I'd also be a professor. And that was the opportunity to come out to this beautiful chapel that the president was building, this brand new Carpet College chapel, $1 million chapel. And I would be the pastor of the campus. Well, I remember when Dr. Curry asked me to come out to this campus. There are 3,000 students. I told him I just can't leave the church. He said, I don't want you to leave the church. We want a church on the campus. And we want you to be the campus pastor. And then, of course, we want you to teach. So I had to pray over that. And I had to talk to Mama about that. And of course, that was tough, dealing with Mama. But Mama did it. Mama said, Harry, you're going to have to talk to the Lord about this. And then Mama said this is what did it. She said, you will have to decide where your life can make the biggest impact, whether at Shiloh or at Bishop. She said, now Shiloh is a wonderful church, and your dad and I poured our lives here. I don't want you to leave. But you will have to decide where you think the Lord wants you and where you can be more of an influence for the kingdom. She always referred to where the master, she referred to Jesus as the master. Where you think the master would have you to be of utmost influence, at Shiloh or on a college campus. And that did it. And so in prayer, I came to the conclusion that if I could pastor 3,000 people on a college campus and teach, especially freshman students, catch those freshmen when they first come to the campus, then that would be the call for me. And then as a footnote, I just throw this in, Ms. Dudley. At the time that I left Shiloh, my salary was $62.50 a week. They were paying, Shiloh was paying me $250 a month. $250 a month. I had 4 little children. And my salary was $250 a month. I had asked the deacons for a little raise to bring me up to $75 a week, but they didn't see how they could do that. I wanted $75 a week. They paid me $62.50. Same thing they were paying Daddy. That's what they were paying me. 4 little children. And I remember one of the deacons saying, well, let's go to the end of the year. This was in January. I asked for a raise. He said, let's go to the end of the year, and if we have a surplus at the end of the year, we'll give you a bonus at the end of the year. And another deacon said, well, I'm on a fixed income. I don't see how we can do that. And Mr. Richard Reese said, now, I tell you what we better do. Now the pastor's he's going to take this recommendation to the church Sunday. And my wife is going to vote for it. And we're going to look like fools. Because the church is going to recommend that we give them a raise from $62.50 a week to $75 a week. The church is going to vote yes, and we're going to look like fools. So they okayed it to bump me up to $250 a month. But in the meantime, this college had invited me out there. They offered me $1,000 a month. Shiloh was paying me $250. And money's not everything, but they were paying me $250 a month. This college offered me $1,000 a month and moved me out and gave me fringe benefits, insurance and so forth. So I told Shakita, I said, baby, she said, well, you pray, I'm packing. She said, you pray over it, I'm getting a luggage out. You pray, I'm gonna pack. She didn't mean that. But anyway, it was hard to leave Shiloh. But the Lord was in the mix. As I look back on it now, we had 13 wonderful years here, 15 wonderful years in Texas, where I was able to teach young preachers for 15 years. And they're all over the country.
That's right.
They're all over the country right now. They're all over the country. And then that side of the wall shows you these young preachers. They invite me to come and be with them all over the country. And so that's my life. Bennettsville, Bishop, Brooklyn. And of course, your last question on there is about my wife and children. We have 4 wonderful children. They're all doing well. Rita has been at Neiman Marcus for 37 years. She's a buyer at Neiman Marcus. Shawana is at Brooklyn Academy of Music in Brooklyn. She is liaison with the community. She's doing good. Deb has been president of Black Bank in Harlem, Carver Federal Savings. 15 years she's been president. Harry Jr. is vice president for student services at Morehouse. So all four of my wife's children are doing well. So I sum it up by saying I married well. And the Bible speaks about being equally yoked. And if I hadn't been a Boy Scout, I wouldn't have met her. Now that's hindsight. As old people said, hindsight is 20/20. And looking back, that's hindsight is 20/20. So on our church's anniversary, I praise God for the chapter that I had at Shiloh. It was the making of me. And to come in and on my mother and father's shoulders here at a great church, and to grow here, and then to go to Texas, and the Lord opened the door for me to do 2 more degrees in Texas. My wife did her master's, East Texas State. That's growing. All 4 of our children finished high school in Texas and went on to college. So that's the growth that God has made available for us. And I praise God for it.
Yes. I remember one summer, Monica and I flew to Texas, and we were out there and we came to see you all. And I never forget Shawana and I think it was Harrieta were at home, and Harry, and they told us that you were abroad someplace. I can't remember where it was. But anyway, little Harry, you had a Cadillac then. Beautiful Cadillac, I never forget it. And he carried us all over Texas to every place and showed us different places, you know, especially, I think it was a college that you got your doctorate from or something. Or was that in Texas or some other place? Yeah. And he showed us the schools, you know, where they had gone to school, different places. It was just really nice, you know. He said, they aren't here, but I'll take you around and show you different places, and it was really nice.
It's an interesting footnote as I close that I spent 1 year at Benedict. I graduated from Morehouse. I did a Bachelor of Divinity at Colgate Rochester, picture up there. And then I did 2 more degrees at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And my son did a master's at Southern Methodist. And my grandson John just finished his master's at SMU, going to school at night. He teaches at his high school, Jesuit Episcopal High School in Dallas. John Christopher does. But it's interesting to me that the Southern Methodist University, I did 2 degrees at Southern Methodist. Harry did his degree at Southern Methodist, and my grandson did his at Southern Methodist. It's just providential if sometimes you just be still and look back and see the road over whence the Lord has brought you. It's just providential. And that's what anniversaries are for, to give us time to look back to see where we've come from. That's about nothing.
Let me ask you one other question. Now that you have traveled, seen the world, because you were seeing the world one time I was in Texas, and retired, why did you decide to return to Dennisville, South Carolina? You saw that question on the question I gave you.
I sure did. I saw that question. And, you know, I don't know. My wife and I, in 50 years, had very few warm deliberations. And that moving back to Dennisville was a hard thing for her. And she won't mind if I just said she was not before coming back to Bennisville. She said, "Harry, when we get ready to visit the children and we get ready to fly out, we can't, there's no airport in Bennisville. We live in New York, we live in Dallas. We're accustomed to going to the airport and getting on an airplane. And now to travel, you be preaching all over the country and visiting the children and be so inconvenient. So if you just want to go south, let's go to Raleigh or to Durham or to Columbia or Charlotte." She said about Charlotte, but not Bennisville. That's where we got started. All the children were born, not Bennisville. But she finally came around when she saw that I really wanted to come back home. And I don't have an answer for that except I just want to come back home. And I still don't have a good answer except this is home. You know, elephants know how to find their way back to the old watering holes. And I just wanted to come back home. I've been all around the world a couple of times. I've lived in big cities. I wanted a quiet place now. And if I could just close out my interview by just with one word that summarizes what I feel in my heart now, the word is contentment. I am content. When I turn off the light and cover up now, I have peace of mind. I don't toss and turn over, I sure wish I'd done that. I am content. The Apostle Paul said, "I have learned how to be content. I've learned how to have little. I've learned how to have much. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." So my word now is, I am content. I lived on a wonderful house in Brooklyn, a picture of it there, right on the corner of President Street and New York Avenue. There were sirens and horns all the time. Sirens on that corner of New York Avenue, and cars blowing and so forth, and Negroes coming up and down the street with loud music on the show. And now when I turn off the light, the only thing I hear is crickets. And that's all I want to hear. It's crickets. And so I am content.
And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I am content.
Shakita would want you to be content.
Yeah.
She would want you to be
I'm
content.
content. I'm content.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wright.